Nothing is free. Every choice that we make, caffeine, alcohol, sex, relationships, comes with a cost. The question is, are we willing to pay it? Thanks for watching another video here. I'm excited about this topic. This is one that's near and dear to my heart, that has been a very powerful realization over the years, and I'm excited to share it with you all and get your thoughts as well. So we live in a very market-driven society. Obviously, when you scroll through social media these days, it's all very heavily driven by marketing, obviously. Before those channels, there are many others. But we're being marketed a lot of different things. And there is a common theme behind that marketing that works with human nature, that essentially says, you deserve this. And even more specifically, you deserve this free, nice, enjoyable thing. Marketing plays into our human propensity for fantasy. And I want to really tease that out in this video, because the more aware and conscious we become, the less that works, but the less in resistance we are to reality. And the less resistant we are to reality, the happier we are, because we accept things as they are. And that's what this is all about. So marketing promotes this idea that, oh, you need free energy. Here, drink this Starbucks. It's free. Just go to Starbucks and pay for it. It's free. You need a free relaxation. Here, alcohol is a great way to relax. Here, drink this alcohol. You need free access to sex, pornography, or other things like that. You need a relationship to be happy. You need a relationship. A relationship is basically a free sense of unconditional love. If you just find the right person, they will unconditionally love you and they'll heal all your childhood wounds. We see whenever you watch dating shows, Love is Blind, The Bachelor, Bachelorette, Married at First Sight, all these contestants have this idea in their mind that if I just find the right one, then my needs will be met and I'll feel better about my life. Now, when you find a good partner, there is truth to the fact that your life can get easier in certain ways, and you should certainly look for a person who improves your life overall. But when we have a fantasy that is not going to take work, and we don't understand the cost, which I'm going to get into in a moment, that's where we get off base. Okay. Another example, making a lot of money. I know when I was younger, I was very enticed by pyramid schemes and multi-level marketing, because in my mind, if I could just figure out a way to sneak into wealth, maybe there's a way, and if there is, I'm going to figure it out. We'll talk about that. Sugar, consuming sugar. We think we can consume sugar without consequence, or so we don't realize the cost associated with sugar consumption. As I talked about in my last video, we think we can be intense and get intimacy. If we're just intense enough, we'll get intimacy and connection. And another one that I was thinking of was we can just suppress things to avoid them. And there's no cost to that. So I want to say this first before I go any further. My core belief, and I think it's true in the universe, is that there's not actually any real right or wrong decisions to make. Right and wrong is something that we construct as humans to create a sense of safety. And at its core, it's not actually real. There is no right decision. There may be a decision that is a consensus in society, like you probably shouldn't go kill somebody. There's major consequences to that, and not just to the person that you kill, but to yourself. Even if you don't get caught, there's a guilt, there's shame, there's an energetic cost to that. But this idea of right and wrong is very, very subjective. So this isn't about right or wrong. I want to be very clear. This video is not about what you should or shouldn't do. This is a video about becoming more free for yourself and counting the cost, realizing that nothing in the universe comes without a cost, And when you're mindful enough to count that cost, you're free to choose whatever you want without getting hit in the back of the head with the 2x4 of the cost that you didn't account for. So this is about awareness. This is not about telling you what to do. There is no right or wrong decision on any of these things I'm about to talk about. So I just wanted to clarify that up front. So why do we believe that things are free? Why do we mindlessly consume and move toward things thinking that they come without a cost? Well, it's like Byron Katie says, we are in unconscious resistance to what is. Byron Katie says, I'm a lover of what is. And when we're not a lover of what is, we have lots of beliefs that keep us from seeing the truth of the universe and seeing the truth that everything has a cost. Every single thing you do has a cost. So one analogy that I like to think about on this is that the universe and existence is vibration. It's waves. Okay, so think about a wave. A wave has a trough and it has a peak, right? And without both, it's not a wave. It's a straight line. A straight line is representative of nothingness. When someone's heart stops beating or vibrating, you see a straight line on the heart monitor, right? There is no life in a straight line. Life itself is vibration, which includes peaks and troughs. So there is no pleasure without pain. There is no light without dark. There is no pleasure without suffering. There's no love without suffering. I don't want to go too far off on a tangent here, but this is the problem I have with some religious folks' idea of heaven. The idea that you could be happy in a place where there's never suffering is insane, and it's not thought through. Have you ever gotten your back scratched, and after a while, the pleasure kind of turns into meh, right? When you do something over and over again, it kind of becomes boring. But life is waves, so if you take a break from it and then come back to it later, it feels good again, right? Life is vibration. There is no life without pleasure and suffering. There is no life without good and bad. It doesn't exist. It's a fantasy. And a lot of times we live in this fantasy for many reasons, but it's a lack of consciousness that simply causes us unnecessary pain. So mindfulness about everything having a cost is simply like counting the cost before swiping a card. And it's doing it proverbially in your life on a regular basis. It simply means you live more intentionally and you live mindfully about the cost of things, and that everything does have a cost. And so the question is, once you stop believing the fantasy that everything is free and there is no cost, what do you actually want? What do you want?
What do you want? What do you want?
It's not that simple.
What do you want?
You can't figure that out until you align with yourself and the universal concept of everything having a cost, and the universe being a transactional universe. So before I give some final reflections, I wanted to go through some examples in my own story, and then just give a couple of examples, and I'll give some final thoughts to close out here. When I was in high school, I remember my girlfriend and I used to go to this gym, and before we would go to the gym, I would drink a Lost energy drink. I don't know if any of you out there have had the Lost, but it was the best energy drink back in the day. And a bag of sour worms or candy. I would literally always get an energy drink and candy. You know, when we're young, we tend to live completely mindlessly around this idea of cost. And we can get away with it, right? Because our bodies can compensate for a lot more, and we kind of grow up over time. But it's interesting because I continued this habit of energy drinks for years. And it was around sophomore year of college. I got into another fitness regimen. I started working out a lot, and it was going very well. I was gaining a lot of muscle mass and seeing positive changes in my body. But one day I was sitting at my computer and it felt like my heart dropped through my chest. And I had a huge anxiety attack. And I ended up dealing with anxiety, hypochondria, of something being wrong with my heart. And it was because of for me, the few years of intense caffeine consumption threw my whole system off. It also didn't help that I went to bed super late at night all the time, and I didn't eat that healthy either. So my body was telling me something. I was paying the universal price for just consuming whatever and living however. And at first, I was like, why is this happening to me? What's going on? Why am I dying? Why? And it took me years to figure out what a healthy rhythm was for myself. Going to bed at a decent time, making sure I eat breakfast by a certain time in the morning, dieting in a certain way, not drinking caffeine. I realized I was very sensitive to and didn't metabolize caffeine well. So no energy drinks, keeping caffeine pretty light. And now at this point, just on this topic, I still consume some caffeine, but it's very minimal. It is typically through kombucha, which has a lot less. I think the kombucha I drink has like 15 to 30 milligrams, or reduced or decaffeinated coffee. And I have a very, very small scoop. And that for me is knowing my body and knowing what price I want to pay. I would like a tiny little boost. I feel a little bit better when I have some caffeine. I work pretty hard at my job and I need to get up and at 'em in the morning. It's nice to feel it a little bit, but I don't have big crashes. I don't have heart arrhythmias anymore. I don't run into that because I figured out the rhythm for myself. And this was actually the vantage point that really revealed to me this idea of universal cost. It was caffeine, because marketing companies have made caffeine seem like water. If you go to a gas station, and aside from alcohol, see what is mostly in those refrigerators. Energy drinks sell like crazy, and for those of us that don't metabolize it well, like myself, it can be pretty destructive to your rhythm. So that's really where I started to see this universal concept of everything having a cost. And then as I looked at life from this perspective at all different angles, I saw it everywhere. So a lot of times we are led to believe if we consume caffeine, we get energy. But what do we really get? If you look at the research, we get stress. Caffeine creates a stress response in our adrenal glands, and they produce more hormones. But we don't have limitless stores of energy in our body. The adrenals can only produce so much hormones. So the cost that you're going to pay on caffeine, now to be clear, some people metabolize it better than others. So this is going to be a different experience. You're going to have to consider this in your own life and what works for you. But in general, the body only has so much energy. So if you take a drug, caffeine, that causes you to produce more of that energy in a small amount of time, you're not just going to still have tons of reserves left over later. You're going to have to pay some sort of cost for that spike in energy. Now, maybe that works for you and you need that for your job and you crash at night and it's fine. But again, be mindful of the cost. What is the cost of drinking caffeine? Caffeine is marketed so hard in our overpaced, unhealthy society to get people to cope. And people wonder why they struggle with depression. Well, a lot of times, for a lot of folks, they're crashing off of caffeine. Their vibration isn't consistent to the rhythm of life. It is synthetically propped up by a drug that marketing tells us is okay. But let's think for ourselves. Is it okay for us? Count the cost. Really question. A lot of times, folks have problems in their life. They have problems sleeping. They have stress. They have depression. And if you've heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the first thing that you start with when you're trying to figure out a problem is your health. So go back to a baseline of health and see what happens. See if your vibration becomes better and if you can create more consistency. Same thing with alcohol. Alcohol is marketed as fun, relaxation, stress-free connection, and it certainly can create that. But there is a cost for alcohol too. And I'm not talking about getting drunk even. That's for me a different topic. For me, this is about counting the cost of what alcohol does to your body. Again, figure it out for yourself. Maybe you can have a glass or two and that's fine for you. Maybe you can have more than that. That's up to you to decide what feels good in your life. But be mindful that a couple things happen when you drink. You will pay a price the next day. If you're dealing with stress, I don't know about you, but when I drink and it takes away the stress, when I come back into my normal state of mind, whatever stressful thing I'm dealing with feels much bigger. Like I've got to revisit it again. It doesn't feel good. And the other thing is from a health perspective, Andrew Huberman has some good videos on alcohol, and drinking on a regular basis alters your hormonal state, just like caffeine does. and actually leads to more depression, it leads to more anxiety, and it leads to hormonal stress. Because again, it's not natural. Okay, it's not natural to the normal rhythm of life. So maybe you look at that and you're like, well, I don't need to have a natural rhythm, and I can be content, and that's great. Do that for you, but be aware that there's a cost to drinking. Okay, pornography is another big one. Pornography carries the idea that you can just have free sex instantly. You can look at as many women as you want and have instant gratification and instant fulfillment. Well, it's kind of like eating a bag of candy. Are you going to enjoy that to some degree? Sure, it's very sweet, but you're going to have a really terrible stomach ache after that, and you're going to pay a price. Maybe if I ate a whole bag of candy, I'd probably throw up. But once you get desensitized to it, you can certainly do it. But again, there's a cost. There's a cost. Same thing with pornography. Pornography is basically empty sex. And again, I'm not saying it's wrong. Maybe it's something you do occasionally to cope. That's your choice. It's not about right or wrong. It's about what do you want. For me, pornography leaves me feeling empty. It leaves me feeling sad. It leaves me feeling disconnected from myself. And good sex with a partner is a lot more fulfilling because you're going through the normal channels of life. You're building connection. You're building intimacy. Again, you're in universal rhythm. Porn disrupts that universal rhythm. And so if you're willing to take on that spike and pay the price on the back end, do it. Do what feels right. You're going to learn the lessons that you need to learn, and eventually you'll get in alignment with where you need to get to. Okay, relationships. I mentioned this one earlier. There's a cost to relationships. In relationships, you can't do everything you want to do. You've got to look at yourself. You have to work on yourself. You have to. In my last video, I talked about how relationships are a mirror. They're going to show you pretty much everything you've got going on inside. And if you're not willing to look at that or be honest about it, you really shouldn't be in a relationship, because a relationship is not going to save you from yourself. It's just going to show you yourself. And that's the cost of a relationship. Now, if you're in a great relationship with yourself, and your inner world is pretty calm and resolved and in a good spot, a relationship can be a great addition to your life. Again, count the cost. What is the cost? Making money. Man, this is one that's marketed to. I'm not saying MLM companies are bad. I've worked with multiple of them, but throughout the years, so many MLM companies have created this idea that wealth is easy. Wealth comes easy if you just know this thing or that thing or work with this team or just get our help. But here's the reality. Wealth isn't easy. Wealth takes work. Life pays you what you're worth. You've seen people that win the lottery. What happens? They don't remain wealthy. The majority of them do not remain wealthy. Why? Because they're not in a vibration of wealth. They don't know how to manage wealth. They haven't worked for it. So even if they can get their hands on it and get lucky, they can't keep it because they haven't built up to a place where they're in universal alignment, that money is a reflection of who they actually are. So this concept of counting the cost is so healing because it allows you to assess yourself honestly and look at your life. Again, life is a mirror. You can look at your life and say, where am I? Am I happy with it? What would I like to change? And you can make changes. It's about becoming aware of the cost and then figuring out what you really want. A lot of people think they want wealth, but they don't really want wealth. They want to be lazy or to relax or to spend time with their friends or play video games. And they might say, hey, I want to be rich, but they haven't counted the cost of what it means to be wealthy or how to build wealth or accepted the universal reality that building wealth takes time and reflecting it back to yourself. Last one I'll finish with is intensity. And I talked about this in my other video, but intensity is a tempting way to think that we can manifest deep connection and relationship without the work to build intimacy. The reality is that intensity is limerence. It is not seeing a whole person and loving them for who they are. You don't know a person up front. So intensity is not intimacy. Now, there's nothing wrong with intensity. If you're intimate with a person, there will be intensity at some points, but it's realizing that there's a cost to everything. If you want real intimacy, you're going to have to pay the price of showing up to a relationship, doing work on yourself, being intentional in that connection, about maintaining closeness over time. After you've really gotten to know someone, you've got to count the cost. So this idea of counting the cost is present as a universal reality everywhere. So here's my reflections for you. when you're considering your life, and I encourage you all to pause and think about areas in your life where you haven't been aware of the cost. The first question I would ask is, in this decision that I'm making, what am I going to pay for it? If something keeps coming in your life that's causing pain, ask yourself, what am I paying for? And is it worth it to me? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. 2, ask yourself, is this cost aligned with who I want to be? Does this align with my values? Right? Becoming aware of the transactional nature of the universe allows us to become who we're supposed to be. And there are certain things you're going to count the cost on and want to continue, and certain things you might change. And then lastly, this is kind of an extension of number 2, but am I okay with this bill, this universal bill showing up in my life on a regular basis? Life is beautiful. It's amazing. You get to make it whatever you want. And the more you can see that and be aware of what is and be okay with what is, and that the universe is waves and it's transactional, the more you get to play in the universal sandbox and really enjoy it, because this life is amazing. But remember, nothing is free. Every sip, every yes, every relationship has a cost. But when you see the mirror and you count honestly, you gain freedom. Life is a mirror. Look inside of yourself to change your reality. Thanks for watching, guys. Please like this video and subscribe if it was helpful for you. I'd love to connect with you in the comments. Share your thoughts below. Thanks for tuning in. Have a good night or day or whatever it is for you.